chat, right? We're gonna turn it off, or we just cover it.
Let's cover it.
Just cover it. The only problem with having the chat not on is that we can't.
You know what? Scrolling up might be a challenge. So if you did turn it off.
Let's turn it off for now, okay? All right. So let's let people come online first. I just gonna say hi to them first, and then we can cut this out. Receiving your content.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Box Office Artist.
Well, hello there.
Theater.
Hello. Welcome to the Box Office Artist.
My name is Jonathan Marcus the
Marcus the Third.
We are here with James Kapanyaringham Rice.
Who? The 4th.
14th.
The 14th. Hello. Stephen, we're no longer playing that game there, Stephen.
Someone is looking for Drax the Destroyer. He's not in this chat room.
It's so echoey. It is so echoey.
Is it?
Because I think I know why. Do I know why? Or should we just do one microphone?
Hold on a second. I'm gonna switch one little thing. Where is it? Oh no. Is it still echoey, guys?
How about now? Is that better?
Jacob, let me know.
Let us know. Let us know.
Let us know.
Let us know. Speaking like that felt like you made it echoey on purpose.
Oh,
it's the same.
Same to be honest. Okay.
Maybe we should just turn off one.
Okay.
Turn off one mic and we'll go for it.
Which one are we turning off?
Well, let's bring this one to the middle.
Okay.
Let's bring that to the middle. And thank you for being what's it called?
Proactive in
and
advising
for
us
helping
on.
us
Exactly.
as we try to work out the kinks to this. So I'm going to turn off this one. How's that, guys? Is that better? Does that sound better? You tell me. Does that sound better? Does that sound better? Hey now. Does that sound better? I could have done the entire stream like that. Well, maybe.
We could have.
We could have.
That might have happened.
But maybe not. Is it much better? Okay, much better. There you go.
Excelente. Muy caliente. Thank you, guys. Did you?
I just choked on Coke.
Did the Coke enter your esophagus?
Esophagus? So I know that guy.
Yes, he's
Mr. Esophagus.
he's part Kryptonian. There are multiple esophaguses. We call them esophagi.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Diet Coke.
The drink of choice for low-carb dieters.
There you go. Cheers. Except I eat carbs.
I try not to.
To be honest, do I look like I like carbs?
No.
Okay. Okay, guys. So, guys, we'll let you know right now. Okay, so we're gonna start this off. We are new at this, just like you guys. So we call that Abraham called me a solid. See, this is why we are actually going to turn off the chat. Okay, we are going to turn off the chat. If you guys want to chat about the podcast, go to the Discord. Maybe they could chat in the Discord. Is that possible?
Yeah,
or
they could chat in Discord. We're on soft launch now. Would you like to launch it out to everybody at this point?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Let's launch it out.
So, guys, I am going to create a.
Actually, how about let's do this? How about because I know everyone here likes to talk in the chat. If there's a problem in the chat, maybe message you. Is that possible?
Sure, yeah, that's no problem.
Why don't we do that? Message Jonathan if there's a problem in the chat, because I need to cover the chat because I'm going to want to talk to you guys. That's what's
going to happen. We're going to see something on there, and then we're going to want to talk with you, and then the introduction will have multiple, like...
Yeah, and then you'll hear me going, hey, Ryan KZ, happy 4th of July.
We'll have tangent after tangent.
Yeah, exactly.
So what we're going to do is we're going to turn the chat off for a time, and then when we're ready to open to questions, we'll bring it back up again.
Bring it back up. So
you guys just for a moment, we'll have it off.
Now, and again, if there's any problems, maybe just tweet us or whatever. But in the meantime, just enjoy what we are going to talk about. Now, give me a second, because thanks to our sponsor, I have a little gas.
I actually just had some gas too, James. You weren't kidding.
I think this Coke wasn't a good idea for the podcast.
Okay, folks, we're switching to water.
I got you. Switching to water. Here we go. Today's podcast is brought to you by Nestle.
Pure life.
Pure life.
Pure.
Pure life. Nestle. Cheers, my friend. Cheers.
Cheers
Mine was open.
to the first podcast.
Did I win? Cheers. Cheers. I'm just joking.
Could you imagine? Should we do the official
Let's get going here.
front roll?
Okay, so you guys know in post I'm going to be adding all the special effects and all that kind of stuff, but we're just going to keep it low regular right now. But right now, guys, apologize to all of you watching live. We are going to turn off the chat for a time, maybe about 30 minutes or so.
At most.
Probably at most
Yeah.
30 minutes, but I'll let you guys know what's going to happen. We're going to talk about our careers in art, and then after that, we are going to open up to live questions. Okay, we have a few questions already from the Twitter. People have tweeted us and on Discord. They gave us questions to answer. So we're going to answer those, and then we're going to open up to live questions. That's when you guys could chime in and let us know your questions, okay? Or your questions. Let us know your questions, and we could go from there. I want you also to do a running count of my ums, okay? My ums and my okays, all right?
Do we have a sheet of paper?
You're going to need more than one sheet of paper,
We'll
my friend.
compare
I'll
it.
tell you that.
We'll compare it right now. No, I'm joking.
There you go.
All right.
There you go. So we're going to get going, guys. I'm going to right now turn off this chat. So I'm going to turn off this chat, and we will talk to you guys soon. Okay, so I'm going to turn off the live chat, okay? So I'll talk to you guys in a little bit. All right. I think I lost my voice already.
Oh, no.
Let's see if I can turn off the chat here. Is there a way to turn off the chat?
Are we doing a formal introduction thing at this point?
Sure, yes, we
Yeah?
are.
All right.
Oh, I could just do that. I'll just do that in Twitch.
Okay.
If you guys want to talk in Twitch, I don't know how to turn off the chat, so you could...
So you can
Watch
talk
and
when we just won't see it.
Yes, exactly. Okay? So...
Maybe, should we just do that on YouTube then, too?
Just
enable it and...
Okay, you know what? Okay,
minimize.
let's do that. Let's do that. Guys, sorry, guys. We're working this out. I'm going to enable the chat again.
You guys can talk amongst yourselves.
Talk amongst yourselves. I am not going to read your comments, okay?
Save the questions, though,
Yes.
if you have any, for the moment that we actually
Yes.
come back to read it, because scrolling up might be a bit of a challenge.
Okay, and I'm going to cover your comments with pictures of ourselves. Okay.
Oh,
Thank you very much, Aaron. Thank you
Devastator.
very
That's
much,
pretty
by the
good.
way. Thank you. Those were the references
okay.
that I was looking at. Okay? Are you ready? Oh, boy, I'm nervous. I'm nervous, man. Here we go.
Yep.
Here we go. Hi, my name is James. I am the box office artist, and welcome to the first ever box office artist podcast. We're so excited to do this, and it's something that we've been planning and working on for quite a while, and I couldn't think of anyone better to do this with than one of my childhood friends, and he's here with me right now. This is my good buddy. His name is Jonathan Incarnation. How are you doing today?
Doing well. Hi there, everybody. My name is Jonathan, just like James said. I am fairly new to the restarting in the industry as an artist, so the perspective that I'll have is going to be quite different from James, and will probably be very similar to the approach and perspective and experience that some of you listeners might be having now as someone who is starting up and coming in.
Right.
So this will be the perspective that I'll hopefully be able to bring to the table and bring some value to you guys with. And yes, thank you for having me, James, and welcome to the first podcast, everybody listening.
Yes, that's right. And this is like really, really exciting. So let me first of all tell you guys what this podcast is all about. This podcast is really for anyone aspiring to get in any sort of art field. So not necessarily just comics, but if you want to get into concept art, or even if you just love drawing, and drawing makes you happy, or creating any type of art makes you happy, this is what this podcast is for. Just to share our experiences and share whatever advice we have for you, so that, you know, if you do want to make this a career, or if you do want to make this just a fun hobby, you know, it's just something that you could use as a tool for you to better yourselves and inspire yourselves, so you could achieve whatever goal you want to achieve when it comes to art, and we're going to have a lot of fun doing it too, hopefully.
I think so. There's a few things that we're just talking about right now and planning, and it looks like there will be some experiments that we might have with regards to variances in experience for someone who is established like James versus someone like myself, who would probably have this as a first-time experience or otherwise a very new experience, and then being able to compare that and then share those comparisons with you guys to talk about those perspectives perhaps live, and of course, bringing in questions. That's another thing that we'll be having today, right?
Right, because especially viewers of my channel, if you don't know my YouTube channel, it's youtube.com/theboxofficeartist. First official plug there.
First
official plug. The Box Office Artist, that's my YouTube channel, and I have a little bit of a following over there, but every single subscriber is, they're very special to me, just for the fact that they are following me on that channel. And a lot of them, a good lot of them, want to be artists upcoming in the future, and that's how this podcast really started. It's just a way for us to kind of help every one of those people who want to make art their career. So we thought for our very first podcast to start it off is just pretty much an introduction to what this is and bring you through our journeys. And that's especially what we would like to talk about today, pretty much, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, of course, for a lot of the listeners here and a lot of the people who might even be listening for the first time, it's going to be highly likely, and I'm understating that they will know who you are
right.
well before they will know who I am. If there is even one from that era, I would be greatly surprised.
Well, there you go. But what's even more important is that I know you. I know you pretty well. I know Jonathan pretty well. I held him when he was born. Well, not immediately when he was born, but they have pictures of me holding you as a baby.
Well, I think you were one of the first
yes.
non-blood related family members
yes,
who actually did that. And there is a picture of that somewhere.
Right, that's right. Like his parents and my parents, they've been friends forever. So we were childhood friends.
Yeah.
Pretty much growing up, we'd always go to each other's houses and play and all that stuff. So we started out our journey kind of together.
We did.
If you think about it that way, in that sense. Like I remember when I was a kid, like I was like, of course we were both heavy into cartoons and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Absolutely heavy into cartoons. But I was more into cartoons. Jonathan was like, I wasn't really into comic books. Jonathan was the guy who was into comic books, and that's the one thing I remember.
James was into baseball cards.
That's right. I was really into baseball cards. In fact, I actually have my dad just dropped off a lot of my baseball cards the other day.
You know what? You just reminded me of a story
that
would be somewhat relevant to your career today.
Oh yeah, sure, yeah.
Now, James is saying that he wasn't into comic books at that very early age, but James and robots, the association with that is probably one of my earliest memories. So as kids, I was probably just about a year old or so. And James, you would have been 4?
Okay, yeah, it must have been. Yeah.
You would have been 4.
Yes, 4. Yeah.
And when we were playing, there was this kids in fascination with strangest things. So we found a box of Q-tips.
Right, okay. I don't remember this.
You don't remember this?
I don't remember this. But yeah.
So we found a box of Q-tips, and James thought that it would be very interesting if we just started, like putting the Q-tips in our ears, because it's like, yeah, that's what we use it for. It's like, oh, that looks cool. And then, like I put 2 of them, 1 in each nostril, and then James said, "You look like a robot." And then I walked outside and showed our parents. I'm like, "Guys, I am a robot." And they got so scared that I would fall over and these things would like impale my brain that they freaked out. And this is one of my earliest memories with James.
There you go.
He turned me into a robot.
There you go. That's how my art career started, by the way. By turning
me into a robot.
There you go.
The most detailed Q-tip robot ever.
I do not remember that at all. Can we try it again? I could do a much better one. Okay, maybe not.
I probably have a lot better balance now than I did back then, but yeah.
Yeah, there you go. But my memories don't go that far back. That's unfortunate. But I do remember, because again, I wasn't into comic books at the time, but I remember I'd go visit you, and you'd always want to go to the comic store. And then we would go to the comic store together.
We'd do the long walk.
So we do the long walk, and then sometimes we went with your dad. Your dad bought me. I think your dad bought me my very first comic book.
Do you remember what that was?
It was an Avengers comic book, if I'm not mistaken. It was.
You got Avengers.
It was an Avengers comic book. I don't remember the number. I don't remember exactly what the number was. I wish I did, but I do remember that one thing. I do remember that was my very first comic book, but I was not hooked yet. with that.
What hooked you?
What hooked me?
So
we're getting a little bit further along into the story yet, but again, I say probably I would say like after mid-teens, before high school. I think I started really getting into comic books. I think around grade 9. It was pretty much the beginning of the image boom at that time. Now, I wasn't there at the beginning of the image boom. Image Comics came out already. You had all of them.
I did, yeah. I was trying to collect every single Image comic that came out because it was more possible at that time. Right? Like, you had the 7 artists, and they were coming out with something every couple of weeks, and so you'd be able to capture that because the one comic you could buy a week when you're age 12 or whatever is like, oh, it'll be that one. Okay, I'm going to get that.
Right, exactly. And then that was back in the time where number ones were rare. Right, like number ones, like that was the time when Superman dies and the world went crazy, so that everyone lined up at comic store for around the corner.
Everybody thought that was going to be permanent.
Right, exactly. They thought it was permanent. I seen people on this news, people who bought them, and they're like, "This is gonna pay for my child's college education."
Yeah.
I remember stuff like that. But that's around that time when we started getting into stunts and starting getting into that whole image. That's what started drawing me in. And that's when I started really getting introduced to Jim Lee stuff with Wildcats, right? And that whole thing, Wildcats. Then I was introduced to Cyberforce, then to Youngblood, and all those team books. And that's when I really started really liking this stuff.
So really liking this stuff. Would you say that your entrance into comic books is something where you're one of the few people who were retained after the collector's speculation market left?
Pretty much, yeah.
Definitely for your love of art.
Oh, pretty much, yeah. And I think that's what kept me in more than story. Like I know you were much more of a story type. Well, you like the art and the story, right?
Art and the story.
You were definitely an art and story.
Sometimes one more than the other, but definitely the story is what would keep me in it for the long run up to this day.
Right,
absolutely.
And for me, it was a little bit of the opposite. It was more the art had to be good for me to keep buying, right?
Yeah.
So that started all, I would say, in grade 9. Like I've always drawn, and I mentioned this before. I've always drawn ever since I can remember. I was drawing, but it was more the cartoons that got me to draw, like watching all those Saturday morning cartoons, watching Mr. T and like all those things, Smurfs and all that stuff. But even Thundercats, Silverhawks, Visionaries, all those Centurions. That was one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Centurions back in the day. But that's when I would start actually drawing. Back then, trying to draw my favorite cartoon characters, but it wasn't until beginning of high school. That's when comics really kind of hit me at that time, and that's when I started to really, not necessarily think I was going to be a comic book artist per se, but really start getting
diving into it more.
Yeah, diving into it more, starting to draw more comic book characters, and start collecting comic books at that time. So around grade 9. I remember I bought an issue of Brigade #1 off my friend for $5. That was one of my first comics, and then we would start regularly going to comic stores. I remember that. And I was in it more for the art than story. So you wouldn't see me collecting things like for example Sandman or anything. Like I had a buddy in high school. He was completely all story. That was his thing. He loved Neil Gaiman. He loved all those guys. But I was a total art guy. So if the book didn't have art that I liked, I would not pick it up no matter how good the story was, right? Or how good people would say the story was. So I picked up everything Image. I picked up everything that I thought was good in X-Men or or the what's it called? One of the blockbuster type titles. That's the ones I would get. I remember I collected all of Nightfall. Remember that? We collected all of the Nightfall.
All on spec.
All spec. Like, we're gonna get rich off this Nightfall. And that's one thing. If you guys don't know, that's when Azrael turned into Batman.
And the original Bruce Wayne got his back broken by Bane.
Yes, that's right.
This is the seminal moment where Bane becomes a key figure in Batman's Hall of Villains, and he breaks Batman's back. People thought that this was going to be permanent too, and there was a lot of stuff on the news where DC would say, yeah, this was planned before the death of Superman. We're really wanting to change up the structure of the DC universe. And Azrael becomes a Batman that kills.
Right.
And we thought, oh my gosh, this is terrible.
Yeah.
Bruce Wayne is gone.
Yeah.
We really believed it.
Right, of course.
Now a character's gonna die. And you're just like, give it a couple years.
They'll come back for sure. But I remember that Bane issue. Not to go just a tiny bit off topic. Yeah. I remember I was too late to get the first printing of that, and then I was in a convenience store and I saw it there. I saw the first. I saw that issue. I think it was $4.97, and I saw it there. But the newsstand version didn't have the half black cover thing. So what I did was I bought a second printing. I took the black cover off, and I restapled it on top of the other one. It's still worth nothing today, but
oh gosh,
back in the day, that's what I would do back then. But
you know what I thought? My experience with that Nightfall issue, like what was that, part 13, I think, or something like that.
Yeah.
So we go to the comic store, my dad and I, and I'm looking to get the latest Image thing. I can't even remember what that would have been now. And I'm looking to get that, and there's maybe 2 more copies of that particular issue of Batman on the stands. And my dad picks it up and he goes, "Hey, what's happening here?" And I go, "Oh, I don't know." And I kind of didn't care. And this is how I found out about Nightfall being an important story. I didn't even know about that until then. I was much younger. And I'm looking around, and I already have my Image comic in my hand. I'm gonna do my once around the store, and my dad says, "Hey, put that back. You're getting this one. Batman's back is broken." I'm like, "Oh, okay."
There you go.
I didn't realize that it was like this iconic thing, and then that's when James and I was like, "James, did you know that Batman's back is broken?"
Right, yeah. There you go.
Well, he's not Batman anymore.
That's true. Like, in all honesty, guys, we have tons of comic book store stories.
So many.
We will save that for future podcasts
Absolutely.
because we want. There's lots on the top of my head I want to talk with you about now, but I want to save it for later on. We can definitely
let's do that.
Go into stories, but with all of that,
why don't we talk about some of the convention stuff because that leads into your first job.
Actually, that's a little bit later, like because we start with convention. Okay. I do want to save the convention stuff to other convention podcasts.
I think I know what you want to go with. I think I know what you want to go with.
We will go that with there later on. Let's fast forward a tiny bit because well, first of all, I did I loved comics enough to do a couple of issues of comics on my own. Right, so
mash cans.
Yeah, some mash cans. We call them mash cans. If any of you don't know what an ash can is, it's like you take a regular letter-sized paper and fold it in half, and that would be your comic. That would be the size of the comic book, right? So it'd be like a shrunk comic book. They were crazy back in the day. Those ash cans.
Were.
So I would draw them actually professional size, 11 by 17, and then go down to the photocopy place and then shrink them down. And then, order them properly, photocopy that, and then do it in a way so I could staple it down the middle and fold that together.
Guys, we didn't have this newfangled technology where you can just have a template in like Clip Studio, say, and it's like printing a comic, and you just take all your pages, import it in, and it does it in the order for you.
Yeah.
No, we kind of had to be mindful of that. I think for the first run, you did a test, and the pages were wrong. And you're like, "Oh,
that's right.
Oh, the pages were wrong.
That's
that was $5.
Yeah. Still, like how much was it? 5 cents a copy.
Yeah.
It was it got pretty pricey after a while.
In like what year would that have been?
I've been 94.
Yeah, in 1994 dollars.
Yeah.
5 cents.
5 cents was a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah. That time. But anyway, but when I was doing those comics, still I wasn't considering it as a viable career yet. It was more of a hobby for me, just something I like doing, and something because I had no friends except for you, right? At the time. So it wasn't until like my last year of high school. That's when back then in high school we had 5 years of high school. 5 years of high school. That last year was something we called OAC at the time. In Canada, in Ontario especially, OAC means Ontario Academic Credit. That is equivalent to first year university. But to get into university, okay, little back history, to get into university, you needed 6 of those to be considered for university. So my last year of high school, I look at my schedule for my last year of high school, and I see staring at me 6 OACs, right? OAC courses. And I look at this, and then I look up, and I said to myself, you know what? I want to draw for a living. I don't want to do this. I don't want to be a doctor anymore. And that's when it clicked to me. You know what? I don't want. Maybe because of laziness, but but at the same time, I'm like, no, this is not what I want to do.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be a doctor anymore. I didn't want to be a chemist. Like my dad also was. He's a chemist, right? So, that was like a section option, right? But I'm like, no, I want to draw. I'm okay at it, and I think I can make it. I can make a go of it.
Yeah.
I was just missing the one credit. To graduate high school. That was the English OAC. That was the one I was missing. I still had OACs I've done already. I was just missing the one. So I was still eligible for university if I applied, but I just needed the one. And I realized Sheridan College had a program. It was called Art Fundamentals, and it started in January. So I said to myself, I only needed that one credit. So I decided to go to night school. And finish that one credit, and then go immediately to college, to art college. Now, my mom, any of you have an Asian mom? Any of you have an Asian mom?
Oh boy, here it comes.
Well, here's the deal. Because my mom is a hairdresser. Okay, my mom is a hairdresser, and in outside of her shop, there was an artist there. Okay, there was an artist there, and he was selling paintings, and he would just sit there all day long.
I know where
We
this
just
is
sit-
going.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
remember
just
this.
sit there all day long. So that's what she thought I would be doing.
Yeah.
She said that's the job she thought I would have. I would be the guy in the. Sorry, my daughter's there. Wait, sorry. Go upstairs, please. Okay. I'll have to cut that out.
Edit it for content.
Okay. Resume story.
Yes.
Okay. So that's what she thought I would be. So when I told her, Mom, I don't want to be a doctor anymore. I want to be an artist. Naturally, and again, it's more of the fear of the unknown. Like she doesn't know how. Sorry, my daughter is screaming in the background here.
Oh boy.
My daughter's
That's
loud.
funny.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It'd be interesting to
Okay.
keep that in just to see if
Yeah,
it picked up.
Just to see if it picked up. But let's go back. Let's rewind.
Let's rewind.
Let's rewind. My mom, for my mom, it was an understanding thing. She didn't understand how someone could actually do art and make it as a livable career, because it's foreign to her. Like especially growing up in the Philippines, like artists don't make that much money.
Yeah.
Growing up in the Philippines, so it was a lot of convincing, and it was more trying to convince her to trust me. Because at the end of the day, she doesn't know. I can show her all the comics I want. She just still doesn't get it. So I told her, you know what? That's when I made a deal with my mom. I said, hey, Mom, let me go to art school. There's this course at Sheridan College. If I get in, I finish the course. Let me take this course. I believe I could get a job. If I can't get a job, then I'll go back to art school. I'll go back to medicine. I'll go back to medicine. I'll go back to being a doctor. So that was the deal we worked out. Then I realized, talking to some of my other friends, that's the same deal they worked out as well. Asian friends. It's a very common Asian deal.
With a lot of traditional parents from that time period, it's like you said, most parents would have this image of someone being an artist being like that person who sold art in front of your mother's hairdressing store, right? Like, yeah.
Exactly. Like a painter, little beret, mustache, whatever. That's their envision of an artist, because especially at that time.
Yeah, nothing
right?
with a regular paycheck. It's,
Right.
like you're trying to get by selling whatever it is that you have in front of you and just putting out your wares and then...
Right. So it was a
would
more
be it.
information thing. But, my mom, is at the same time, she was extremely supportive. So, for her, it was just prove it to me. Prove it to me you can make it here. So that's when it all began. So I went to school. I took a course called Technical Illustration at Sheridan College. And that was a very interesting course. I'll admit, the only reason I took that course was because I couldn't get into the animation course. At that time, there was only 3 animation courses, and there was so much competition, and I just couldn't get in. I wasn't good enough to get in.
I remember
to the
that.
animation course. You remember that?
I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember you're like, I have to take this.
Right.
I'm gonna have to take the technical course because I have to go.
Right.
I have 1 year.
Right.
Yeah, I remember that.
Exactly. Now the art fundamentals, that was like a pre course before animation. So from there you could either get into animation, illustration, whatever. So I got into illustration. Illustration was just general, and then after the first year, I was about to fail. Okay, I was about to fail because there's this one course I just couldn't get it. It was actual interpretive illustration. That's the one thing that says, for example, there's a picture of this hand and the finger is cut off. It means the world's gonna end, or so. You know what I mean? The art has to relay some sort of message.
Yeah.
And you have to make the message clear. I could not get through that class. For some reason, I was not good at it. I was horrible at that type of stuff. Oh, this red. Well, red's angry, but the red is a symbol for someone whose leg is broken, but they have no love in life.
These like
and,
symbolic, abstract, almost representations. Yeah.
Exactly. And then my question is, how do you mark that kind of course? Anyway, but I just couldn't get it. I just couldn't get it to the point where I was going to fail that course. But my teacher talked to me, and he said to me, I'll tell you what, you're going to fail this course. However, you go to technical illustration, I'll give you a D. Then I went to technical illustration. That's how I got my first
wow.
one. Yeah, that's how I decided to go that particular route. Technical illustration, we learned a lot about perspective. It's illustration you would find in for example, like technical manuals, that type of things. Like art you would find like in on the airplane. You open up the pamphlet,
right.
That type of illustrations in there. In textbooks, those type of things, right?
Some of the concept arts that you would have for like a pamphlet if you're looking to buy a house, that sort of
that
thing?
kind of thing. Yeah.
Or like a condo.
We even had a course on like painting homes. You know, that kind of illustration. Again, when you're buying a home, it's the picture of the home that's built already. We were taught how to paint those type of things. So a lot of that kind of stuff. That's what we learned, and that's when I really started to grasp perspective. Now, all the while doing this, like in the summertime, I would start drawing again, doing my own comic book samples. I never stopped collecting comic books at that time. I was still hardcore in collecting comic books and trying to develop my style, knowing that was the end point there. That was when I was decision. I'm going into comic books, and that this technical illustration was my tool. Well, if you look back at my Blood Warriors comic books, I wasn't very good at backgrounds. But this course actually helped me develop that style and understanding the fundamentals of perspective, learning how to draw backgrounds, trees, all of that kind of stuff. And that's what really helped me develop my style, so much to the point where I couldn't draw humans anymore. Well, not necessarily draw humans anymore, but my backgrounds were much stronger than my figure work at the time.
I remember you saying that at some point. Later on in the story, we'll talk about it. But I remember a point, and I remember a point where James was saying that, and he felt it too.
Right, yeah.
I can't draw humans. It's so weird. I gotta go back to
it. It was a stigma, but we'll get to that. Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. We'll get to that in a minute. But like I could draw humans okay, right? But my backgrounds were stronger, and my portfolio was like that. Now we went to Comic-Cons, right?
We did
go to Comic-Cons, and we have a whole bunch of great Comic-Con stories for you guys. Great Comic-Con stories for you guys.
Go back really far.
Yeah, and we will have podcasts specifically for conventions. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But after my last year of college, so this was about 1999, I would say. Last year, we have a work placement, okay? So they wanted us to go to work for 6 weeks. We had to find our own placement. And I knew I wanted to work for a comic book company at that time. Now, in Toronto, there was only one major comic book company.
Oh, yeah, here it is.
Here it is. Only one major comic book company that was actually in Toronto area, and it was a company called Dreamwave Productions. Dreamwave Productions, they worked out of Markham, Ontario, which from where we are right now is roughly around 20-30 minute drive.
At least
around there, depending on traffic, of course.
Could be an hour and a half even.
Yes. But they were doing Image Comics. Okay, they were published by Image Comics, and they were doing these series. There was very anime centric series, so anime style. Series, right? As you could tell, they're highly influenced by Japanese anime, and they were the first ones to actually do that type of style comics. That's how they got really popular. Their first series, Dark Minds, kind of exploded because it was the first one that had that type of style.
Absolutely.
Even though it felt very much like Ghost in the Shell, I'll tell you at that time. But Dark Minds and Warlands and all of that stuff. So I knew that was a company that I should target over there. So I did a few things. First of all, I had my regular comic book samples. I did a sample that with I believe it was Cyberforce characters.
That's what it was.
And I also knew that the head of that studio, his name's Pat Lee, and we'll get into that story in a different podcast. Okay, yeah. But I knew that he used background artists. I knew that because I you'd see it in the credits. It would say background artists, background assist. So I knew that he had guys who did his backgrounds. So two pieces that I did. There were two covers, one for Warlands, one for Dark Minds, that had a character there, but no background. So what I did was I blew those up, I traced them, I traced the actual figure, but then I went and drew a background around them. Okay, drew a background around them, and I put that in my portfolio. Okay, and I also did this one where I did a Dark Mind piece, but then I colored it cell style. Okay, the cell style, so with the cuts, so it wasn't gradient style, which is what you found common in American comics, but it was more cell style.
So again, very similar to what anime has, where they would do the light and dark contrast with what feels like a very hard line.
Exactly, exactly. So very similar to the style they were doing. Okay, so when at a specific convention, I don't remember, so it must have been 99, but it was Fan Expo. It was Fan Expo. I'm not sure if I was with you at that time or not. I might have went by myself. I'm not sure.
We might have gone together for one of the days, but then the day you did that.
That's right. I think it was with somebody else that day. Yeah. But I talked to Top Cow. Top Cow seemed actually pretty interested in me. I met Matt Hawkins, who's even today, I believe he's still the CEO of Top Cow. But he liked my stuff. He liked my stuff, and he said he would give me a card to the studio. Never happened. He goes, I'll give you the number of the studio. I'm like, all right. Never happened.
Right.
But then I went to the Dreamwave booth, and I met a guy. His name is Sigmund Torre. And I showed my stuff. Now, I'll be honest with you guys. I didn't know what to expect from them, because even though I did those little drawings that catered to them, my figure drawings were not in that style at all. As you know, I'm more influenced by Jim Lee, all that kind of things. See, the phone agrees. Okay. Ding, that's correct. So I didn't know what to expect. I didn't actually expect him to like it. So I showed it to Sigmund, and he looked through the pages. I'm like, oh, this is great, man. This is great. This is great. Here's a card. Right?
Just like
so
that.
I got just like that. He liked it. Here's a card.
Yeah.
Like, all right, great. Okay, so I take
So
that.
maybe we should explain that though, the whole idea of a card like back then.
Sure.
Right? Where it's just like if you're giving your portfolio
Mm-hmm.
to a studio with the intent of seeking work from them,
Yep.
your idea of feeling like you're pretty much in is when you receive that card.
Right,
Because they're not
exactly.
giving that to everybody that comes in with a portfolio.
Right, yeah.
Right? So that's why when James is saying he was with he showed us stuff to Top Cal, and they said we'll give you a card.
Yeah.
That felt like a 50-60ish%.
Right.
But Dreamwave gave him the card immediately.
Right, yeah.
So that's what we're talking about there.
Absolutely. So it was a big thing.
Yeah.
I had the card. I was super excited. So I'll tell you what. The next, I think, a couple weeks, I tried calling the number at the card on the card. Nobody picked up. 2 weeks. Calling different times during the day. Nobody picked up that phone. And I'm like, what was it? Nobody's picking up. Maybe he gave me a false card.
There were strategies too,
yeah,
guys.
Yeah.
There were strategies. I remember James and I would be talking on the phone,
Yeah.
and it would be like maybe day 4 or day 5 of him
Yeah.
doing this, and it'd be like, oh, you know what? Hold on a second. It's 1 o'clock. I haven't tried 1 o'clock yet. Okay, I'm gonna try to call them. I'll call you back.
Yeah.
And he'd do that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it wasn't until I picked up a Wizard magazine, okay? And in it was a feature. It was a feature
Yeah.
on Pat Lee. It was a feature on Pat Lee, and in that story, he said, "Oh, I have 3 pages to draw today. Good thing I just woke up." And then the story said he said this, but it was like 12 o'clock in the morning, and then it clicked to me. I'm like, "Oh, I get it. They work in the nighttime.
Yeah.
They work
yeah.
in the nighttime." So literally that night, 3 o'clock in the morning. 3 o'clock in the morning, I get up, I call the studio, and someone picks up the phone.
Right.
Someone picks up the phone, and he's like, "Hello?" He's like this. I'm like, "Oh, hello, hi."
Oh my gosh.
Hi, my name is James. Sorry to call you so late. I met Sigmund at the con. He gave me this number. He told me to call. I'm an artist and all that stuff. I was wondering if I could come and show you my portfolio and stuff. And the one who picked up was Pat Lee's brother, Roger Lee.
Yep.
Fantastic guy, by the way. I love Roger. Even today, I love Roger. I haven't talked to him in ages, but he was a cool dude. But he's like, "Oh yeah, sure. Why don't you come in tomorrow night? Come in tomorrow night at 8 p.m." And that's what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the next night I come in, my portfolio, scared out of my mind, right?
Yeah,
The portfolio, walking in there. They're outside smoking, right? So Pat and things. So I met them and we were talking for a bit, and Pat's like, "Okay, let's go upstairs." So went upstairs. I go into his office, and I show him the portfolio that I showed Sigmund. So he's there, and he's looking through it, and you could tell he didn't really care for the Top Cow stuff.
Okay.
Like he's looking through it and he's like, yeah, okay. But it was those 2 pages where I drew the character and then the background. He stops and looks at those people and he's like, "Oh," and he flips back and forth between them, right? He's flipping back and forth, and he's like, "This is good stuff. This is good." And then we started talking about my background, like me drawing backgrounds, like at my training and all of that. And I told him, I took technical illustration, good at drawing trees and all that kind of stuff. And he goes, "You know what? I'm always looking for a good background artist, right?" And he also liked the colors that I did as well. That moment, someone barges through the door, right? Someone barges through the door. It was who was that? I think it was Omar Doggin. I think who it is.
Okay.
Some of you might know Omar. He's actually a very popular udon artist right now. Actually, a very popular Instagram artist too. I think he has over 100,000 followers. But he barges in, and maybe it wasn't him. Maybe it was Roger. But anyway, either Roger or Omar barges in, and they're like, "Hey, look, this issue of Neon Cyber needs to get out tomorrow. We need backgrounds for these pages right away, and nobody could do it. What should we do?" Pat Lee looks at me, and he goes, "Are you free tonight?" Right? And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Okay."
Yeah.
So that began my very, very first official comic book work. It was Neon Cyber #5, and it wasn't even the full page. I think I only did like 2 panels there, 2 or 3
At
panels.
the end of it, it was 2 panels. That was it.
3 panels.
Okay.
But that was my first official work, Neon Cyber #5. That night, I applied. From there, that's when Pat started giving me more background work. And I became Pat Lee's regular background artist after that for Warlands. And then I started laying out the issue for him. So I would lay out the issue for him, and I would draw the backgrounds, and he would draw the figures. And so that relationship kept going. So I would do backgrounds for him. I would do backgrounds for a guy named Alvin Lee. If you don't know him, he's a very popular artist, works at Riot Games Time. Huge artist now. So I would do his backgrounds as well. And then came a time when we got the Transformers license. And then they came to me, and they said, hey, James, we know you could draw cars really well. How would you feel about drawing the second title? Pat was going to draw the first title, and we want you to draw the second title. It was called Transformers Armada, because we know you could draw cars. And, of course, I cried. I cried. Now, that wasn't my first fully penciled issue. I actually did a couple issues of Warlands. We'll get into that a little bit later on. But that was my first really, really big break, fully penciled Transformers Armada #1. And because because they wanted Pat Lee to draw Transformers for the longest time. His issue came out sold like gangbusters, right? Because mine was the second title, and because it came out a couple months later, because of the heat of Pat Lee's issue
going in.
Yes.
Yep.
Mine was even hotter because of that. And I was like one of the #1 artists in the world at that time, just because I was attached to that one title there. Hot.
I don't remember this because I think we're getting into 2004.
Yeah, this is 2002, actually.
Right.
2002, yes.
But like when we get to that particular point in 2004, did your name actually hit the Wizard top?
No, it's
No?
never. No.
Okay,
I wish it did. I wish it
Okay.
did. I would love to say it. That'd be on the wall right now.
Yeah.
That would be blown up. I'll tell you that. I would print that out and blow it up right here.
For people that
I would
don't
put
know-
it on T-shirts if I had that.
For people that don't know, before the time of just being able to go on Newsarama and various other comic book websites, Wizard would be the go-to. That would be our monthly dose of comic book news.
That was the internet.
Right.
Wizard was our internet back then. Like, even though we had a little internet, like even in the 90s, that's how we got comic book news. Like you said, that's the only place to find breaking comic book news.
Right.
You picked up the Wizard magazine. You knew what was going on in the comic book industry.
And so it's even more timely going back to James's story where he's talking about how he was calling Dreamwave every single day, and then he's flipping through a Wizard and reads that Pat Lee interview. Like, this is all analog.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
This is all like he went to the store, he bought the Wizard, he's wondering why they won't pick up the phone, and he's reading through it, and then he gets that. Like,
Right.
That's
Right.
a few more steps removed than it would be today, for sure.
Absolutely. It's a little bit. Well, I wouldn't say it's easier now, but there's different methods.
Absolutely.
To get
Quicker
through it.
methods.
Even then, it's not necessarily quicker, but it's different. Let's just say that's different.
Right.
Depends on the person, but again, we could talk about that
Ad infinitum later on. Yeah, exactly.
So we'll quickly go through this because I'll probably, like a future podcast, I'll discuss every company differently. But from there, I worked on Transformers and for Dreamwave for the next 2 years, I believe. And then in next year, 2003, and there's another whole story. Again, we'll get into it when I talk more in depth about the Dreamwave stuff. But there was a point I had to leave Dreamwave because I didn't have enough work there. And that's when I messaged Warren Ellis. Okay, and let me tell you how I met Warren Ellis. If you guys know who Warren Ellis is, very prolific writer, forever. He's been a writer forever. Back then, he had message board. He had this really cool message board back then. I forgot the name of the
Bad Signal.
It was a
And
bad...
I know this because there's a certain aspect, but it was
okay,
called Bad Signal. It was called Bad Signal.
Bad Signal, that's right. Bad Signal, that's right. And everybody went on that website, right?
Absolutely,
Everyone.
anyone and everyone who was into comic books,
Right.
that was their thing.
Right, exactly.
And his email was warrene@aol.com, which he would never respond to because he had a secret email. But anyways,
There you go, right? So that particular message board, like, that's where, I started posting things. I started posting my own art up there, getting feedback on there. So that was a real, like, that place and Malar World. Those were the two.
Those were the two big ones.
Were great to actually post art on
Yep.
and get feedback and actually get professionals to look at your work back then. So Warren Ellis, my stuff caught his eye. It did. Actually, for a little bit of time, for like a year. And he was always coming back to me asking me if I wanted to work on a certain project. Like, there was actually a company called Broken Tree Comics, and he wanted to.
remember those
yeah,
guys.
and he. Yeah, don't worry. They're not.
Okay.
Don't worry about it. And my friend told me Warrenhouse, he'll just take anyone who gives him money.
Yeah.
Right. So he had an opportunity to do an issue there. He asked me if I wanted to do his book at Broken Tree Comics, and at that time I was doing Transformers, so I couldn't do it. But then when when I realized I didn't have any more work, or work was going to come, like literally it was going to be like a year before I had like real work. I went to Warren and I said, hey, I'm free if you have anything available. And that's when he told me about this story he had called Tokyo Storm Warning. And then he said he was going to publish it through Wildstorm. Okay, at that time, Wildstorm was just bought out by DC Comics. So that's when I got a call from Scott Dunbier, the editor, and we talked about it, and that's how I got my first job at DC doing Tokyo Storm Warning, which they published through their Cliffhanger imprint. And if anyone knows who Cliffhanger, Joe Mad, J. Scott Campbell,
That's
Humberto
Danger Girl,
Ramos,
that's
Danger Girl. I believe he did Crimson and Battle Chasers. That was like the new Image at the time.
Yeah.
And I was like the fourth title. And I was over the moon. Like, what, am I going to be Cliffhanger? I'm Cliffhanger?
Yep.
I'm a Cliffhanger? No, I was really over the moon. We will get into that because that's another podcast, what happened there. Let's just say things didn't work out, and let me just say it was completely my fault. But we'll talk about that in another podcast. But from there, I think there was a bit of time where I didn't have any work to do there. So then I got a job doing Wonder Woman. I got a job. I don't even remember how I got that job. I don't even remember how I got that job. But I got well, I don't remember. I'm trying to remember how I got that job. I think I just kept emailing editors.
Yeah.
And then Ivan Cohen, he was the one editing Wonder Woman at the time. He just messaged me back and he said he liked my stuff. So I think it was the persistence of messaging editors. That's how I got that particular job. So I got 2 issues to do for Wonder Woman. So they got me to do 2 issues.
Was it 210 and 211 or something like that?
Close. 211 to 212.
Okay.
212, 213.
Okay.
Very close. Very close.
I remember because I have these at home.
Right. So from there, I remember finishing off there, I actually had the option to go to Top Cow to do the 6 months of work, but I wanted to stay at DC. So I waited around too long before accepting Top Cow's offer. Top Cow wanted me to do the 6-month series. So 6 issues. Now, I'll be honest, at the time, Top Cow didn't pay that much. That's why I wanted to stay at DC. But, so I waited around, but then it turned out DC didn't have any work for me.
What was the series? Do you remember?
I forgot what was it called. Monster or something like that. I don't even remember what it was called. But, so that fell through. And then I was kind of struggling for work at that time. So I think it was like a good 4 or 5 months before I got any work to do. So that's when I actually went back to Dreamwave. And I did a little bit of work for them. That's right before Dreamwave went bankrupt, I believe. So I went back to Dreamwave, did some concept art for Pat, did an issue of Transformers Energon over there. And then from there, I just kept doing samples. You know, it was back to the samples. It's like you got so far and now you're back to kind of like the beginning again. So I started doing samples again. So I started making my own samples. And then I started sending those around. And then I believe I also did an issue of, that's when I did my Star Wars Tales too, that year. I think this was 2004. I got
the first and only official Star Wars work you had done.
Yes, Star Wars Tales.
Or licensed work, I should say. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, very first one with the Vushas Vong. Is that how you say it?
Vushas Vong?
Vushas
Bong.
Good enough. Okay. With those guys, okay? But I drew just a short story with that, but they never asked me for more work after that, so I don't know if they were satisfied or not with that. And that's when I think after that, after Dreamwave went bankrupt, the Transformers license was kind of up in the air at the time. Now, I believe at that time, I was still doing little things for Top Cow here and there,
Okay.
so I believe in 2004, I did a short story of City of Heroes for Top Cow. I did a short story, like a 6-pager. City of Heroes, they like that. So they offered me to do an issue of City of Heroes. And I thought to myself, great, this could prove I could do a team book. Right? I could do team books very much like the Avengers. I'll tell you right now, the pay wasn't very good. I'm not going to tell you how much it was, but it wasn't very good. Okay? So I took on that. I took on that job. Right? And then... Oh, sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. Sorry. that was a little bit after. Oh, let me think. I'm trying to get the timeline into my head.
I think at some point in there.
No, I'm trying to think if the Marvel stuff came before that.
Oh, you mean like the Hulk Abomination thing?
Yeah, yes. Let me think.
I don't think it did.
No, Hulk came in 2005.
Yeah.
Right.
Because when I started with Silver Bullet Comics, you hadn't done that yet.
Okay.
And you were my first interview. Do you remember this?
No, I do not. Yeah.
This is where it comes in. So in 2005, I mean, like, while James is doing all of this, I'm 3 years his junior. So when he's doing the stuff for Cyberforce, doing his portfolio and doing like a couple sample pages of Cyberforce, I'm doing that too in my own 15-year-old way, drawing Cyberforce, but not obviously having the intention, not being an adult, of bringing that out there. Right. But at some point, once it hits around 2004, when James is just coming off of Tokyo Storm Warning, is when I'm looking at websites, and I just randomly come across this one called silverbulletcomics.com. Now, back then there was already a website called silverbulletcomicbooks.com. So I accidentally typed in Silver Bullet Comics and found this thing. Right. And it was a really well-designed website for the time. Right. And it said, we're looking for writers. And at that point, I had already gotten well into the sales industry. But I had always loved comic books and art and that sort of thing. But I was doing really well there. And then I said, you know what? Why not just give it a try? I picked up a random comic book, like Batgirl number 58, with art by Ale Garza. And I sent in a review to them. And I said, hey, I don't know if you guys are looking for writers. Here's a review that I just did. If you like it, let me know. They sent me something back within an hour. And they said, we love this stuff. We're going to post it immediately. If you'd love to do more reviews, let us know. And so I posted, and so I was like, this is great. So I started doing reviews on a weekly basis, and then I started trying to up the bar a little bit. Can I do 2 a week? Can I do 4? I was doing 1 almost every single day at some point. And while this was going, I was starting to get in good communication with a guy who ran the website over in North Carolina. And we were talking about how he wanted to expand the influence of that comic website. The first thing I asked him was, you're called Silver Bullet Comic Books, but there's already that well-established Silver Bullet Comics. Were you thinking of changing that? And he's like, no. That kind of brings initial traffic in, but we'll keep them in. This is the kind of guy. Yeah, this is the kind of guy like me.
Those who are too lazy to write the books at the end.
Yeah, exactly. Like me. And so that's how they got me in. Yeah. And they're like, nope, we're keeping that. We get the initial, and we're going to keep them in with the content. And then that started getting my mind going. And so James and I, of course, being people that go to conventions a lot, I started thinking to myself, you know, what if I did event coverage? And then even more than that, I said, you know, what if I do interviews? And then that's when James, I was at this point, because I was working over in sales and James was doing his comic thing, we were both very busy with our own lives. And so when we reconnected in that sense, I called James and I said, hey, I'm working for Silver Bullet Comics, and you know, like I kind of want to try interviews. Do you want to be my first interview? And he said, yeah, absolutely, sure. So we reconnected. At that point in time with regards to comic books. We reconnected and we talked about that, and that's the period where James is talking about now, where he just come off of Tokyo Storm Warning, and I think you just did the Wonder Woman also.
Okay, yeah.
You just did the Wonder Woman, so the Hulk and the Abomination thing hadn't happened yet.
What year is this? This is
early 2005, late 2004, early 2005.
Right.
Talking about Warren Ellis though. James tells me about the Warren Ellis experience. I'm starting to look up pictures of this man Warren Ellis online. I'd read some of his stuff. I like his stuff. I didn't know what kind of a person, you know, like what kind of a presence he had in terms of his internet presence or what he brought out to the public. I'm reading his stuff, and he's got a very stark humor that is sometimes very graphic. Mm-hmm. And when you see pictures of this man, he has a large, intimidating presence.
Oh yeah, he does. Yeah,
long beard.
Yeah,
big frame. And then I look at the convention circuit happening in the next few months, and it says Warren Ellis at which one was that? Is that Toronto Comic Con? Toronto Comic Con in April. Warren Ellis, Brian Michael Bendis, all of this stuff. And at this point, I'm looking at the Wizard top 5 writers, and I'm like, 2 of them are going to be. I'm a nobody at this point in terms of the comic industry, and I'm just like, I wonder if I can get interviews with them. I wonder if So we get to April. I had this interview with James. I had that in the can. And my editor, the guy who ran the website, said, "You know what? Let's sit on this one. If you can get an interview with Warren Ellis, that would be amazing." And I was like, "Is there any way, any connections that you have that would be able to make that happen?" He's like, "Nope." I'm like, "Oh, okay. So I'm just gonna I'll try to get an interview." And he's like, "Yep." So I'm trying to contact the guys that are running the convention and everything. No one knows who Silver Bullet Comics is. So they're just like, "Oh yeah, come by. We'll give you a press pass. Is it possible to interview Warren Ellis?" No answer. Right. Warren Ellis sends out an email newsletter along with being active in the Bad Signal forums. He sends out an email and he says, "Anyone who wants to interview me, email me at warrene@aol.com. Hey Warren, I'd love to be able to interview you. I'll be at the Toronto Comic Con." No answer. Absolutely no answer. I'm trying to look for background because I'm like, this is my first interview. I want to try to get as much background info as possible. I'm trying to find out the last time Warren Ellis was interviewed. It was like 7-8 years ago. He hadn't done any interviews.
Right.
I was like, oh boy, I don't think he's gonna do an interview. And so I was like, okay, at the very least I can go to his panel. I'll sit down. We get to this point where we're at the convention. I'm sitting down at the panel. There's a Q&A session. And this is the first time I've actually sat at a panel and seen these Q&A sessions where you're lining up in front of a microphone and people are talking. And it's kind of funny when you see should we evacuate?
Yeah, no, Warren Ellis is here.
Yeah, he knows we're talking about him, guys.
There you go.
Oh, okay.
Warren Ellis left. Okay.
So that particular aspect of that story, I guess I should omit.
Okay,
that was Warren Ellis, guys.
Okay.
Anyways, I get up to the mic. He had already kind of like undressed a few people with regards to some of the questions that they had, and he had these very like straight answers. And then I go up to him and my question was, I'm nervous as heck at this point, right? And I asked him, what was it? It was when you're writing, when you're working with an artist, are you looking for something in particular with something that you've already written, or do you get matched with an artist and then you start to write to their strengths? I think that was the question. So what do you look for in an artist? And then he has this very thick accent. He looks at me and he goes, "Nice legs." And I'm really nervous. Like I asked, "What do you look for in an artist?" He's like, "Nice legs." And I'm nervous as heck. So when he says that, I look down, and then I look back up at him, and I go, "Thanks." Like, I thought that he was talking about me. And the whole crowd starts laughing. And Warren Ellis, who's been serious the entire time on this panel, he's just like, sorry. So afterwards, I approached him and I asked if I could interview him, and because I was the guy who looked down and said thanks, and he thought that I meant that to be witty, but I was actually scared as heck. He's like, "I'll give you 2 minutes." And I ended up walking around with Warren Ellis throughout the entire convention and hung out with him in the back area after,
great.
And had probably about 2.5 hours of content on my voice recorder. That was my first Wizard Top 5 interview.
Wow.
At that time. So when you're talking about Warren Ellis and some of the things that you'll probably be able to find on the Box Office Artist channel and so on and so forth, like there's that extra little bit of something for me in the back of the head, like having that experience with Warren Ellis,
right,
and knowing Warren Ellis in that way,
right,
that goes, yeah, I can kind of see certain things that are going on there.
Right.
So going off in this time, and there will probably be some other podcasts where we'll talk about some of these other artists as well. In that year that I was working with Silver Bullet Comics, Warren Ellis was my first big one. I had already had something where I was going to meet with Brian Michael Bendis, J. Michael Straczynski. Brian Michael Bendis, by the way, guys, the guy that's doing Daredevil. A lot of you guys who are reading comic books will still know because he's very active to this day.
Absolutely, yeah.
Straczynski, the guy who wrote Rising Stars, known for Babylon 5, did an excellent run Spider-Man back around that time. Brian Hitch was someone that I ended up interviewing. Frank Quitely was someone that I ended up interviewing,
Nice.
and that was picked up by some of the other more popular news circuits as well because of the fact that Frank Quitely hadn't done interviews.
Right.
He had only done, I think, 1 or 2 other interviews at that time, so I might have been the third or fourth person to interview him, to do a profile interview. and a lot of other things during the time of the Silver Bullet Comics. That was a great year run. I was actually being paid as an editor-in-chief at that time, working with the Silver Bullet Comics, up until the point where there started to be, I'm not really sure what the full scope of it is, but there started to be some problems with the storefront that this website also ran in North Carolina. And then at some point, the money stopped coming in, and it slowed down. So I had to go get another job. And instead of going back into sales, I went into logistics and operations management. And so that was my dip in, dip out. Before coming back to what it is that we're doing here.
Yeah, before dipping back in.
Right.
A little bit later
Before dipping back in
right
and saying that this is going to be the long term at this point. So
right, yeah.
if that goes into the timeline for yours, so that was 2005 to 2006.
Okay, yeah.
A lot of it goes into
right on.
yours
Well,
now.
there's a whole bunch of stuff. Now, thinking about it, I think I did do the Marvel stuff before, and I'll tell you why. This is why I think that. Because now I'm remembering this one pinup I did of the Incredible Hulk, right? And I remember...
This was published in... No,
it wasn't published.
Okay.
It was for myself. It was for myself. And I do
Online.
remember the signatures there said 2004. I do
Online.
remember that.
I know
so
this
it must
one.
have been that. So, as you guys know, I was doing a lot of samples because I wasn't working at the time. So I just kept grinding away, started posting online. Even editors would watch me, but they wouldn't have any work for me. Like Mike Martz would watch my stuff. He would give me feedback. Mike Martz is a great guy. I think he's the CEO of Aftershock Comics, if I'm not mistaken right now. But so I just keep posting stuff. And then one day I get a cold email from a guy named, was it Mark Pansina? It's either Mark Pansina or Nate Cosby, one or the other. They messaged me and they're like, "Hey, we saw your pinup of the Hulk. We really like it. Would you like to do a fill-in issue of the Hulk?" Out of the blue.
This is the one of him
Out of the blue.
like in the broken tank.
Yeah.
That's the pinup you're talking about, right?
No, the broken tank. Yeah. He's holding it like that.
Yep.
That's the one they saw and they loved.
Yep.
I don't know if they saw my sequentials.
Okay.
But I mentioned this before. It was an act of desperation for them because they could not find anyone to help fill in this issue. Okay, and how desperate they were. The day they called me, they're like, "Can you start right now? Can you start now?" That was their comment. I can start now. I can start now. I'm doing nothing. So they sent me over the script. So what happened was the regular artist, Jim Muntz, I think he still works today. Jim Muntz, he could only do half the issue. He was supposed to do full. He could only do half. So they sent me the script for the other half. And I was so excited that I finished it and finished it fast.
And how fast are we talking about? How many pages? How many days?
I finished it in a week. I think it was about 7 pages or so, 8 pages in a week. That's how fast. I went lightning fast, and they didn't need it that fast. But I got them out of the bind. Yeah. So they said, "Okay, can you do the rest of the series, half the book for the rest of the series?" And I'm like, "Sure, okay. I sure can." And then they gave me a longer deadline, but I kept on the page a day.
Right.
I kept on the page a day. And that's when they really liked me because I was able to finish way ahead of schedule. I'm talking about weeks ahead of schedule, the entire thing because I had time. I had time to do it. And the quality was good enough where they liked my stuff. Okay. That's when after that they offered me to do Captain Universe Invisible Woman, a one-shot on my own. So I did that, not as fast. That one took me a little bit longer. If you guys see in some of those pages, I really, really tried to go for it in those pages. And then after that, then came the opportunity. They were doing a title called Amazing Fantasy at the time. And they were going to reintroduce Death's Head. So they asked me if I wanted to redesign Death's Head, which I attempted to, but they didn't go with my design. They went with somebody else's design. But to design the world that he was in. And then they wanted me to do 5 issues of it. Right? So that was my longest tenure at Marvel. Actually, I only did 4 of the 5 because the 1 month I had to go to the Philippines, so I couldn't do it. They asked me if I could actually draw it in the Philippines. I'm like, probably not. Yeah. I could have tried, but it would have been tough. Try to scan it in the Philippines where we were anyway. We were in one of the poorer parts at the time. So I did 3 issues. One guy filled in, and I did the last issue there, and that was my relationship with Marvel at the time. They really liked me and was starting to go forward. From there, I had the opportunity. Marvel didn't have anything for me right away at that time, and that's when City of Heroes popped up. right? So I decided to take the City of Heroes job mainly to prove the team book. Like I said before, I wanted to prove I could do a team book. And City of Heroes, I actually love doing City of Heroes because I did that Top Cow thing a year ago. So they wanted me to do issue 13, and I was supposed to do 3 issues of it, 3 issues of City of Heroes. Now, here was the problem, okay? I don't want to get too much into it. Let's just say there was a money issue. Let's just say that. And so I started doing it, and then I get a call from a friend of mine. His name's Eric Coe. If you don't know, Eric Coe, he owns Udon, right? Mm-hmm. And they were doing a G.I. Joe Transformers, what's it called? Crossover. Yep. Crossover. My buddy Joe Ning, great guy. He was the main penciler, and he needed help. So they called me. They are asking if I could do it. Now, because of the money issues with what's it called? With Top Cow and the City of Heroes, I decided, okay, maybe I could do both books at the same time. So I attempted to do both books at the same time, right? And then my buddy Eddie, he works at a company called Spin Master. If you don't know Spin Master, they're the ones who do Air Hogs. If you guys seen Air Hogs, those toys.
Yeah.
Those toys. And they were working on this IP that they wanted to release as a comic book. And my buddy Eddie, who I worked with at Dreamwave, he was working for them. He suggested that I come in and draw this comic book. And they were paying well. And I'm like, okay.
So it goes from being so you went from being no job, all on spec, to having 3 jobs at your door.
Right, exactly.
Taking all 3? Because at this point, I've left, so I didn't even know what was going on.
That's right.
Point. Yeah.
I took all 3 jobs.
Oh, boy.
It was the worst time of my life, but the happiest time of my life.
Well, I bet.
At the same time. It was one of those things but, you turn into a hermit after this. You cannot leave, especially if you're working on 3 books at once. You're timing yourself per page. Okay, I got to do 3 books at once. If I do 4 to 5 hours a page, I should be able to get 3 pages done in a day, and then we're going. And I pretty much burned myself out at the time. The quality was low on all of them. Okay, and again, we'll get back.
That's another topic that we could probably talk about when you get into a lot of work and hermit yourself. Yeah.
Right. We'll talk about that, knowing when to say no. I should have said no to one of them. So at that time, then I decided to say no to Top Cow because they weren't. I was having the money issues with them.
Right.
So I quit the next 2 issues. They were not happy with that because now they had to go rush to find somebody to replace me. Mm-hmm. So understandably so. They had the right to be mad now I'm thinking if I were to change, and we'll talk about this later on other podcasts, but if I were to go back, I would have kept, if the same thing happened today, I would have turned down the other jobs, kept doing the Top Cow. If I could do 3 pages a day, why couldn't I have done that with Top Cow? I could have done 3 pages a day, get that book out in 2 weeks.
I see what you mean with that perspective.
I would have looked like a hero.
Right.
Even though I wouldn't have been paid much, I would have looked like a hero. Right. But I did it the wrong way. Right. And again, we will talk about more of that, like I'm sure in future podcasts. So work on all of them lacked. They weren't very good. My buddy Eddie, who colored my thing, he saved me. With the colors that he did for that book. So at least that was saved.
Yeah.
The Transformers G.I. Joe, I kept delaying and stalling. But Eric's a good guy, but he was starting to get frustrated. You could tell, I know you're going through things, but you got to finish your work, dude.
Yeah.
That type of thing. So that went on, and that all finished. And then after that, that was the time. At that time. Okay, so we're getting into around 2005, closer to 2005, 2006, closer to that.
Yeah.
And when that was happening, the 3 issues, my wife turns to me, and then she goes to me, "Are you happy?" That's what she says to me, and I said, "Yeah." And she goes to me, "Well, I'm not. I'm not happy because you're in your room, you don't see your kids, or your kid. I only had the one daughter at the time. I hope just one kid, and you don't see your daughter." And you're just there working. And is there anything we could do? What have you ever considered going back to school? That's what she told me. And I'm like, what? You're crazy. I'm getting the most work I've ever had in my life, right? And you want me to go back to school? And then I had to think about it. And I'm like, then the more I thought about it, the more it started to make sense, right? Because it was a dream back then working in comics. Like even when you didn't have a job, it was a dream to have like a weekend off. It was a dream.
That would be the thing that everyone would say that would be working on that grind and being a regular comic writer.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Like to have a day off.
Yeah.
Not having to worry about work and all that. And I'm thinking, man, that would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
To go to work and leave the work at work and not worry about it when you come home.
Yeah.
That's when I started thinking like, maybe my wife's onto something here. So that's when I decided. I believe that must have been early 2006. That's when I decided to apply for college again and take computer animation. So I was actually accepted in various colleges because of my work experience, but I decided to take computer animation in the fall. Now, before I went there, though, I had one final job, and that was for DC Comics. Mike Carlin.
Which one was this?
Mike Carlin, and this was Birds of Prey.
That's
I did
right.
2 issues
That's
of Birds
right.
of Prey,
Yep.
issues 98 and 99, before Nicola Scott took over and killed it. But I did those 2 issues. That was my final full comic work before I decided to go into film. Okay? Now, and then that began my whole film journey. Okay? Now, I don't know, should we separate this into another? We've been gone for an hour. Right.
We
now.
have been going on for an hour. So
hour.
why don't we just list very quickly like the stuff that you did for film and how that led you to here
okay.
and where we are
Because
now?
the whole film thing, that was really okay. So I'll breeze through it quickly. But let's just say I went to Sheridan College. I went for a year of computer animation. From there, I got my first job at MGM, and all of this we'll get into quickly.
Some titles that some people will know. I know that you've talked about
MGM, I worked on Stargate.
Yeah.
There, I was a 3D modeler. That was my main job. And then
Yeah.
I turned into animator and like a generalist. From there, I worked for a company called Anthem. I worked on a show called Sanctuary. If you look that up, it's called Sanctuary. Well, actually, no. Even before that, from Stargate, then I worked for NBC. And there I did Watchmen. I worked on a movie called Watchmen. And then I went to Anthem. I worked for show the Sanctuary.
Yeah.
After that, I worked for a studio called CIS. Today they're called Method Studios. There I worked on a movie called Invictus. You don't know Morgan Freeman, Matt Damon. It's a rugby movie. And from there I went back to NBC and I worked on a movie called Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. All of this as a asset modeler, 3D modeler. From there, that's when I decided to move back to Toronto. We'll get into that story later on, whole story about that. Went back to Toronto, joined a company called Spin VFX. That's where I worked on a whole bunch of different movies. I worked on Battle LA. I worked on Underworld Awakening. I worked on, let's see here, a whole bunch of WWE movies.
Is this for Fast 7 came in?
Not yet. Not yet. Because that's when I actually started transitioning from being a modeler into what we call matte painting. For those of you, like, all of this stuff is like filling in the green screen or changing things, trying to make things
Changing a
look real.
background to make it look like it's shot in Toronto, but we want it to be LA.
Right. So instead of me actually building the 3D models, now I was making like realistic paintings that we would put on those models. So my job was now not modeling but painting. So that's when we transferred into matte painting and getting into that. So I worked on TV shows like The Borgias, Dominion, all that stuff. In between there, I had a cup of coffee with Ubisoft because I have a best friend who he was the animation director at the time. They needed a storyboard artist. So I came in as a storyboard artist, and lots of stories there. We will talk about that another time. But so I worked on Splinter Cell Blacklist, went back to movies and did worked on a show called Rain. I think that's still going today. Rain for the CW, Dominion for the CW, a whole bunch like others on the top of my head. The Signal. Go check my IMDb. Should be there. Should be there. But then I got a job at a place called Pixamundo, and that's where my latest job. And that's where I worked on Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, the Sword of Destiny, which is on Netflix right now. You can watch that right now. That's where I worked on Furious 7. That's where I worked on Fantastic Four. That's where I worked on Marco Polo Season 2, which you could also find on Netflix right now. And the very last thing I worked on was a movie called The Promise, which just came out a few months ago. But that was the very, very last movie that I worked on before I decided to give this whole YouTube thing a try, which is a whole other can of beans.
Whole other thing.
But we could go into the YouTube journey a little bit later.
Right.
I guess maybe we'll do that for a different podcast when I go into the YouTube journey, because that actually started earlier. But in terms of my professional career, pretty much like 20 years I've been grinding in this business.
And this is a lot more detail than would even have been covered in any of the stuff that you've talked about with regards to YouTube, with even some of the small minutiae for the things that you've done.
Right, yeah.
And so I mean, like, if there's something to look at as a resume, like for a lot of us, we'd know maybe one or two things key at the top of the mind and then have an idea of what the rest of them are.
Right.
But when you're talking about an art career, this is the shape of what it could potentially look like depending on what it is that you want to get into.
Right. And again, as you can tell, a lot of struggle, lot of struggle. It's not all roses. Like no matter what, like I started off freelance and then going into regular job, back to freelance. Regular contract. There's so many different avenues, and that's one thing I was able to do was kind of sample all of them, every single different life that there was whenever it came to art, and getting to choose how I wanted to shape my own personal art career to kind of where it is today, where I'm trying to do art on my own rules now,
Right.
and trying to do things my way now, and get that kind of, it's one of those things. One of the main reasons I quit my job was because I wanted to do art my way and give that a try. All right, but before, like I'm an older guy.
Yeah.
I'm an older guy. I'm going to be hitting 40 next year, and that's one thing I wanted to do before I hit 40 was I wanted to make sure I tried it. Okay, and I tried to do it on my own, by myself, in a way I wanted to do it. And if it fails, no problem. I can go back to film. That's an option. I will have to make that decision because my kids are getting older, and one's going to be in college in a few years, which is hard to say, but it's true. It's true. So I got to think about those things. So I have to make that decision more for the family, because let's admit it. Right now, this is for me. Me quitting my job was more for me, not for the family, right?
I think you hit the nail on the head though with one of the words that you use there. It's like you're talking about life. So like when you're talking about art and you want that as a career, because it's not something that's as cut and dry as a lot of the other potential choices that are out there for a lot of us in terms of what we want to decide in our lives.
Right.
The whole idea of being an artist is one thing, and learning the technical stuff and being able to time your progress and that sort of thing and be able to be faster. But then there's also the quality of life aspect of it. And especially for us, our generation, I think it might be a little bit clearer now. Yeah. And also there are a lot of other avenues that have opened up because of the speed at which we're able to like transmit information through the internet and with all the different things that we have.
Right.
But it wasn't near as cut and dried through your journey with regards to how to have a good life balance as an artist, especially in like the comic book industry, and also have be an artist in the comic book industry, and then have like a good life balance. That whole idea of you with the weekends and stuff like that.
Right.
Like back then, it wasn't just you, it wasn't just James. It was the thing that an artist would have in their mind. You want to be a comic book artist, you're working every single day. Weekends aren't days off; they're buffer days.
Right. Yeah.
They're buffer days. Whatever you don't meet up with on those Monday to Friday, you'll have the Saturday, Sunday to do it, and you'll most likely be using them. Right.
Well, and for some, not necessarily a bad thing, because for some people, that's what they want to do,
and their life would fit it as well.
Exactly. Like, and especially if they don't have a family or anything, no type of tie downs. Like some people don't even know what day it is sometimes, right? Yeah, that's because that's their life. That's every day, and that's what they enjoy. One thing about my career was, again, I was able to sample all these different types of lifestyles with different types of art, to the point where at this point, I kind of know what I like. Right. And I kind of know what would make me happy in that career of art.
Right.
But that only came from experience sampling all these different forms of artwork, or of art lifestyles. And I think that's one thing that helped me decide to go in this particular route. Now, somebody who's younger, who maybe be 13, 14, 15, or even 20, 21, 22, who doesn't have that kind of experience, they don't know exactly. Like someone could say, yeah, I'm going to be going to comics. I love comics. I'm going to go into comics. But how do you know that that's exactly for you if you didn't try the other ones? You know what I mean? Right? You just go by, but at the same time, you love comics. So you want to do it, and that's your goal. Go for it. But don't underestimate the power of trying something new at the same time, because that's what I learned. Like going into film, trying something new, trying these different avenues when I was working in film, working in video games, all of that. Like it really opened my eyes to something even wider.
Yeah.
And especially today with new media, with all these coming out on Instagram, Facebook, video, all that, because I love doing video too. It's it opened my eyes to a whole new world where I could kind of scratch that artistic itch, but do it in a way that I want to do it. That type of thing. And that's where this journey is kind of leading right now. And
it's all formulated it into what it is that you're aiming for now.
Right, exactly.
The coupling of all those experiences down into taking what you want and then leaving the rest and trying to formulate that into the shape of your artistic life right now.
Right, exactly. So that's pretty much what it is,
Yeah.
you know, and of course we're in all these podcasts we're probably going to go in depth into a lot of.
We'll have our anecdotes, I'd imagine.
Oh,
and
absolutely. So many anecdotes that would take us days to get through them all.
This is true.
For sure.
Let's
right?
get to those questions.
Why
Actually,
don't we
let's
do
let's
that?
do that. What do you want to go with? Should we go with the YouTube one first?
Let's go with the
Twitch?
questions that we got originally first. Why don't we
Okay.
answer some of those, and then we will actually go to the everyone who's watching live, and we thank everyone who stayed this long.
Thank you very much,
Stayed this
guys.
long. We went over an hour talking about
We did.
Our particular art careers here. But why don't we go to a few questions? What do we got there?
We'll go with the very first one that came out.
Sure.
So this one is from Darmody. Some of you guys in the YouTube chat will probably know him from the live streams and then also the Twitter chat and Discord. His real name's Ollie, actually.
Okay, so Darmody Draws.
Darmody Draws.
Darmody Draws. Okay.
Jonathan, I have a question. How did you prepare to meet these big artists and writers? And did you miss out on meeting any of your favorites?
All right.
So, so going back to that list of those top five writers and top 5 artists. When I was doing this in 2005, I looked at that list and I had one of those things in my head. Like, James and I are sometimes different in our approach, where if I'm about to start something, I look at how like possibly the furthest that you could possibly shoot, and then go, yeah, let me try that. With all the heartache of it, yeah, let me try that. So, top 5 writers, top 5 artists, and I ended up actually getting a few of them. So, I mean, like we were talking about it before. We hit Frank Whiteley. I was able to interview Warren Ellis. I was able to interview Brian Michael Bendis. Like, these are some of the guys who, when I was getting back into comics at the time, were like basically my heroes with regards to this stuff. But someone that I ended up missing out on. We have a thing in Toronto called TCAF. It's the Toronto Comic Arts Festival. And it's not like the conventions that we've normally talked about here that definitely center in on fandom, things like anime, things like comic book superheroes, that sort of thing. This is more of an event that shows comics as an art form. And in this particular thing, this is probably something that influenced me a lot with what it is that I approach art with. But at that place was Paul Pope. And some of you guys might know this person. He or might know this artist. He's someone who right now is doing some commercial work for Nike, but he's done work like Battling Boy, Batman Year 100, Escapo 100%. In terms of literature, comic books, he's one of the top guys from New York. And just around the time of this TCAF in 2005 is when I was first exposed to his work, and I thought, man, the amount of movement that he's able to capture from his stuff, I'd love to be able to talk with him about this. So I approached him. I asked him if he wanted to do an interview. He said he'd heard about the website and he'd love to. Let's hit it tomorrow at 10 o'clock. I wasn't staying downtown when this was happening. I was actually just going back home outside of the city, and that day I remember that there was some construction happening. The traffic was absolutely terrible. It took me 2.5 hours to get downtown when it normally takes me 45 minutes. And so this 10 o'clock meeting that I was supposed to have with Paul Pope didn't happen. By the time I got there, it was closer to 12. He had already left to go to the airport. I'd emailed him, apologized. I had not heard from him since, and that is one of the most gut-wrenching things. Like, this is a guy who is like one of my like comic book heroes with regards to the way he approaches art.
Right.
And I not only did I not get the interview with him, he's not responding to my stuff anymore, and
Right.
he might not. He like unless I see him in person again to be able to explain it, I might never be able to talk, and I never did get to talk with him.
Right. That's always tough. Yeah.
There is a second one. I'll just talk about it a little shorter. So one of the names and one of the people that I did have the fortune of interviewing is, and I'm gonna think there might be 1 or 2 people that don't know this name. Okay. Jim Lee.
Never heard of him.
Oh. Jim Lee, X-Men, Wildcats. He's the head of Wildstorm now. And
If you say so.
okay, so Jim Lee, I had been following. Like, he's the person who, outside of Batman, Superman, and all of that stuff, this is the first person whose art I was buying for the art. X-Men. I didn't even know what X-Men was. X-Men was a weird thing to me at age 10. Here he is drawing this stuff, and I was like, wow, this art's really cool. I finally got to interview him. I did a phone interview with him. But because things were going a little strangely with Silver Bullet Comics, that particular interview has not been published to this day.
Wow. You still have a copy of it?
I have the audio copy of it somewhere,
Oh.
yes. I don't know if the .vor file is capable of playing. If anyone
Right.
knows how to play a .vor file, because I can't find something that's like on Windows 10 compatible,
Oh,
please let me know.
Maybe Premiere can handle it. You think
Nope,
Premiere? Nope.
it can't.
Oh,
It can't. It cannot. But that is, and so yeah, Darmudi, to answer your question, yeah. So Paul Pope, that's the big one that I've missed.
Right. So if any of you can figure out how to play that file, I will send you a print.
There we go. Thank you.
We're gonna put that on
Thank
the
you,
channel.
my
We're gonna
friend.
put that on the channel.
We'll put that on the
They're
channel.
gonna send it to Ghibli. Hey, remember this?
Let's update it.
So there you go. There you go. So thank you, Darmani Draws. That was a great question. Awesome.
Should we go to the Twitter? Did anyone more recently go into the Twitter chat? Because there is
see.
some from the Ask BOA hashtag, which we are no longer using because it also kind of crosses with Bank of America.
Yes.
But
Okay, let's see here. So, Andre Olenek says, so you both have been working in comics for a few years. My dream goal is getting a job. Okay, hold on. My aunt is talking, everyone. Just hold on a second. Yes? Not yet. Soon.
oh,
That means no.
that's. I think that's the YouTube chat talking now.
There you go.
They've channeled the lightning rod of Warren Ellis,
go.
and the alarm is going
There
off.
you go. Maybe in about 20 minutes, okay? Sorry, guys. You are all welcome to have dinner. Come on over. There you
Come
go.
on by. The address is bleep, 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 bleep,
Yes.
bleep. No, I'm
Hey,
joking.
not that many bleeps. Okay, here we go. Andre Olenek asks, so you both have been working in comics a few years. My dream goal is getting a job at DC. Any starting points besides practice? Actually, maybe, Andre, maybe we'll save that.
Maybe
We will
we'll
save
actually have that
for
as a podcast.
Yeah, because that is a podcast all on its
Absolutely.
own, Andre. We will definitely get to your question. We will hold on to that. We will definitely answer that because literally that is a whole entire podcast altogether.
It can definitely
Yeah.
be something with some huge substance for an entire podcast.
Hopefully to bring in some guests as well who could also help us answer that question, especially today, like people who are more current who actually work in the comic book
Absolutely.
industry.
There's a variety of experiences to be able to break in. So
Right on.
Now let's go to the chats because we've
All
been
right.
there we go.
Okay, so seeing who's on the chat, we have not been looking at this the whole time, so we'll even see how many are here. Okay, there are 30 people watching here. So at the chat now, we would like to, anyone who would like to ask us a question, we would love to answer your question. So any questions at all about careers, we would love to hear it. So hold on, let me put my other,
Right.
how do I do this? Right click? No, how do I put this back?
Channel chat.
Oh, where is it? Channel
There you
chat.
go.
There you go. Your list
going
close.
on here?
There
There
you
we
go. There you go. Okay, so anyone who has a question, now's your time to ask a question. Let's see here. Everyone says hi. Hi guys. Hi guys. How you doing?
We're back on the chat and we're having a look at the actual chat
Right on.
stream now, guys.
Yeah, there you go. So, first of all, thank you for joining us live here on the podcast. So,
There we go. This 30-second delay has come through, so now
there
they're all
you
coming
go,
through
there
now.
you go. Okay. So, like most of these are more specific into like right now the questions coming in. A lot of your questions, guys, we will be answering in subsequent podcasts because a lot of what you're asking is podcast all on its own. For example,
They could run an entire topic for
exactly.
a podcast. Absolutely.
Like, for example, Grail D says, do you have any advice about getting into film art, storyboard concepts? Again, all of those ones could be entire podcasts all
Very
together.
macro questions.
Yeah. There you go. Here's one. Brett H says, when are you guys coming over to Australia?
Well, I think you were hoping for a year.
Hopefully in a year. We'll see. But again, once it becomes more of a reality, we'll let you know for sure. Let's see here.
Aiden, when you were younger, did you dream to be a comic book artist, or did it just come up as an opportunity as you were older? I think we spent the last hour answering that.
Right on. I get it. Because I'm trying to think to myself if I actually ever thought that art would be a career before then. And in my head, probably not.
I think for
probably
you,
not. Yeah.
I think for you, I remember saying that when I was a kid, I said that I'd want to be an artist ever since I was a little kid. And then for you, you would tell me things like, I don't think that's an option for me. I need to be a doctor. But you felt it. I'd
Right.
love to do it, but I can't.
Right.
And what's really funny, guys, is that it turned like a full 180. He went into art
Yeah.
and did that for the majority of his life, and I left it
Right.
for some time up until now.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. So I think and correct me if I'm wrong in terms of like how you remember the feeling,
Right.
but I could sense that you definitely did want to do art from a very early age. It's just not something that you felt was practical.
No, absolutely. I think that's the whole thing, the practicality of it all. Like again, it's more information thing. Doctor, you get it. Lawyer, you get it. You know, even like things like you want to be anything in a uniform. Fireman, policeman, you get it, right? You know they get paid. They know it's a real job. Teacher, you get it.
Right.
Teacher, you get it. And like I said before, even to this day, my mom still thinks I'm unemployed. Actually, no, that's not true. It wasn't until I told her I was going to be a professor at a college.
Right.
Then she got it. She's like, oh, professor, huh? All that working in film. And I was doing extremely well working in film. Even all that, right? My mom still is like, oh, you're getting a job? College professor. Oh, there you guys go.
That's your first job.
Right on. Yeah, there you go. There you go. So, any others that have to do with our comic book career? And everyone in the chat, thank you so much for your questions. A lot of those questions we will answer in other podcasts, but we are looking for more questions that have anything to do with our personal art careers. If there's any other questions you would like to ask.
Yeah, I think for a lot of these questions, guys, we'll be banking them, and then we'll be using, and we'll probably be having them as topics for a future podcast.
Sure.
There we go.
There you go. Positive Productions asks, was there a comic or character that pushed you to improve your work?
How's it going, Israel?
So, is that his name? Israel? Israel. There you go. Positive Productions is Israel. I don't know if that was an alias or not, but we just outed you. They're Positive Productions. But for the most part, I think every era, there was somebody new. Every era, there was somebody new. So, for me, like, of course, as we talked about before, the Image era, that's one of them. Everyone who, like, for me, it was everyone who was up and coming.
Right.
They were it's like they were the competition.
Yeah.
Right? They were the competition. So when I was at Dreamwave, it was my buddy Don Figueroa. He was my competition because he drew Transformers so well to this day. Like he's amazing, right?
Yeah.
But he had a much better work ethic than I did, right? That guy was a machine. Even when things were going bad, like monetarily, he would still push and just draw because he loved it that much, right? So he was the kind of guy that pushed me, Don Figueroa. And then as the years went by, guys like I would say, well, guys like Brian Hitch, but they were more like the top tier. But then Marvel had that. Remember, they had the 6 up and coming artists.
Oh, the Young Guns.
Yeah, the Young Guns. The Young Guns, right? So
like Lionel Yu was one of them, I think.
What's called Adi Gradoff.
Yes.
Adi was one too because he started at Dreamwave. He did a comic book called Necro War, I believe it was called.
He did that. Oh yeah, that's
remember
right.
That?
Yes.
And as a quick story about that, Marvel contacted Pat, or I'm not sure if it was Pat, but he contacted Dreamwave to try to get his contact. They wouldn't give it to him. Yep. Like they're gonna find him eventually, right? And Addy exploded to what he has. Addy.
It's funny
David
that you mentioned
Finch
that because that was half
in.
explained when I did interview
Right.
Adi Gradoff. He did talk about how he was at Dreamwave for a bit, and
Yeah.
then Marvel was trying to get him. So
Right.
like this is the back end of that
Yes,
story.
yes, the other side, right? But those guys, those young guns, that's another thing that pushed me. But like everybody that was kind of I felt was on my level but was doing better. That's my competition. Nicola Scott, right?
Right.
Because both her and I were on the Millar World message boards. And and she is what she is today. Like she is known for Wonder Woman, right?
Right.
Those of you who watch Collider Heroes, she's been on there, right? But she's Wonder Woman.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. She's associated
and,
with Wonder Woman as
and
well.
rightfully so. Her work is amazing.
Yeah.
Right. It is incredible. Like so, artists like that. But even getting into in my film career, there were artists that I went up with that it felt like competition. So
Okay.
it was always guys that were on that I started off kind of on their level, but they were doing slightly better than me. Right.
So this is interesting
So-
because your answer seems to be a little bit more different than I think some people would have expected here.
Right.
Because like let's say for mine, where it would be like when I was 15, it would have been like someone like what do you call it, Jim Lee,
Right.
or Cyberforce.
Right.
Mark Silvestri.
Yeah.
Yeah, like those guys. Those would be the ones that I would emulate. But yours, because being in the industry, it's not so much guys to emulate and go towards. It's people within your circle and peer group,
Right.
and in the industry at the same level as you, where you're like, okay, their plateau is here. I'm just about here. I want to be able to do this.
Yeah,
so that's
exactly.
what pushes you to improve.
Exactly,
It's a
that's-
more interactive, and
Right.
a more direct thing.
Yeah, because guys like Jim Lee and they're like to me, they were the end game. They were the pinnacle.
Right.
That's where you wanted to be at the end. But you knew you had to get those baby steps
Yep.
to get through. And those guys that I felt were on my level was kind of a way to kind of like
Get
push myself
through those
forward.
steps.
And I'm like, oh, this guy's ahead of me. I must not be working hard enough, or I'm
Right.
not doing things right. I got to change. So especially when he's saying, how do you push yourself? That's what really got me to push myself, was because, okay, I'm competing.
Yeah.
With all this, it's like a friendly competition, because a lot of these guys are my friends too.
Right.
It's more like a friendly type of competition, but that little bit of competition that helps
Is
drive.
what kind of
Yeah, and
nudges
especially
you forward.
and like even today, like I would even see that today, like even in doing the YouTube, right? There are artists like, and it's like a little community.
Yep.
As YouTubers, like everyone around the same subscriber level,
Right.
And we have those guys who are doing extremely well, and then those whose progress a little bit less. It's not like you want to outdo them, you don't wish them bad, you want them to succeed, you want to collab with them at the same time, but at the same time it kind of pushes you. Okay, he's getting up there, I need to, not saying I feel I'm better than any of them, but it's like, okay, he's getting up there, I'm happy for him, I gotta get up
get up there too.
I gotta
Yeah,
get up
yeah,
with
yeah.
them, right? And then I see guys like and then you guys then you look up at the next tier.
It would
Right?
almost feel like changing tables, where it's like,
Right.
okay, we're all at table 5.
Yeah.
Oh shoot, he's moving over to table 6.
Yeah.
Oh, that looks like fun. I better get to table 6 too.
Right, I want to get to table 6 too, right? It's not I want to pull them down. I never want to pull anyone down. I'm happy for them. I'm more excited.
Right.
I'm excited for them. I just want to get up there with them.
Yeah.
That's all. So I see, like I say, the equivalent today would be a guy like maybe Jake Parker,
Yep.
who's a legend. Ross Strauss, who exploded the last couple months, like he's at 200. I think he gained like 100,000 in like 2 months or something
awesome,
like that.
yeah.
Like that guy there, and his personality. I'd love to collab with Ross Strauss, but like those type of guys, those are the guys I'm looking at. I don't want them to come down. I want them to keep going up.
Yeah.
But I want to try to catch up.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So
At
you're
the same
taking
time.
what you can learn from them,
Right, exactly.
in terms of how their stuff has expanded,
Right.
and trying to apply whatever you can of that into yours and how it fits into yours, and then
Right.
doing your own thing as well.
Right, and then seeing like fellow YouTubers that are kind of around the same area as me, like Chloe, like my buddy Christopher,
Yeah.
and all that stuff. It's like, come on, I'm like, come on, guys, let's get up together.
Yeah.
Right, and pull some guys who I think should be higher, like guys like Robson Art, guys like Jonathan Rector should be up higher.
Yep.
I think, like guys like that. Come on, let's go up together. So I think Gary Vee said it best. You don't want to tear down any building, which
Absolutely.
I don't. I want to build the bigger building. Right, or even better, let's all build a big building together. And that's
And the
more
one where
my
you're having a lot of
attitude now.
fun, and you're
Right.
and you're all like working with each other.
Right,
And
exactly.
it's a positive thing.
Right, exactly, and that's one great thing is about, we could all do it together, because there's so much for everybody. There's room for everybody, right? So why not do it together? You know what I mean? So that kind of thing.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. So
Let's there's a few questions actually. We might have
Okay.
to scroll up.
okay. Oh, yep. Yeah, let's see here. Oh, here. Is there a comic that you didn't get the chance to work on, but you still want to work on?
There you go.
Hell yes.
Yep.
I think I mentioned this before. When I got back to Dreamwave, literally the week I got back to Dreamwave, I get a call from CB Cebulski. If you guys don't know who CB Cebulski, he's the
I know
talent
this one.
manager. He is the talent manager at Marvel. And he goes, James, good news. Because I've been talking to CB for years at this point. For years. He knows me. I've always been sending him stuff. He's always been trying to help me out. He goes, good news, James. I got you a Spider-Man fill-in issue. I just got back to Dreamwave. 1 weekend. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, no. And I'm like, oh, CB, I just got back to Dreamwave, but I could do it. I could do it, CB.
Yeah,
And then he's like, oh, you know what, James? If you're busy, that's totally fine.
Yeah,
There'll be
I
more
remember this.
work. There'll be more work down the road. Don't worry about it. I'll get you more stuff later on. I'm like, And then that more work didn't come till 2005. 3
Oh, hey,
years later. There
Check
you
out
go.
that throwback question from Maurice.
Yeah, would you guys? Oh, was from Reese, the last one there.
Yeah.
Would you guys go every?
Would you guys ever go back and do
another
another
issue
issue of
of
Blood
Blood
Wars?
Warriors?
No, that was an all James thing. I was just the manager behind the scenes.
It was the
but-
manager, but I am considering for a challenge to redesign them. I want to redesign them and give them a new name. 'Cause
Right.
Blood Warriors probably wouldn't work out, especially in this PG area
Right.
of my YouTube
Well,
channel.
just in general.
Yes,
at this
yes,
point.
that's right. So there you go. Let's
Well,
see.
the podcast and actually.
Yeah, we want
let's
to ask
talk
that
about
question. That's a good one.
Let's see. Mihailo Mijanovic says, I hope I pronounced your name properly. Will this podcast stay on YouTube, and how many of these are you planning to do?
Okay. Yeah.
Good question, actually.
We're not like, in all honesty, I'm not sure now how many we're planning to do. As many as we can. Like
Yeah.
this is a regular thing. We're gonna get better at this. So you know.
So at this point,
what
we're
we do.
aiming for weekly.
Yes.
For podcast release. It may increase.
Yeah.
There might be some weeks that we might miss, but we'll advise you guys if we do, if
Right.
that happens. But
Right.
we're definitely going to stay to this thing of a week.
Right.
The other thing as well is that in terms of planned release, we're not going to do every single one live on YouTube.
Right.
There will be some, but mainly we'll want it released on iTunes. We'll want it released on Google Play. The major outlets that you guys know and grab your podcast feeds from
Right.
is where you're going to be able to see these.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we have that on the back end, and you'll be seeing them up there very shortly. But in terms of this live stream right now, this is, you might not see this out for a few days because we're still just about to talk about what day we should be releasing
Right.
these on the regular.
Yeah, a lot of things we plan to work out, but the fun part is working it out with everyone who's
exactly.
watching, and also, well, we want these podcasts to be kind of timeless in that sense because you know, I think forever people are going to be wanting to get into art, so we don't want it to pretty much date all these podcasts per se.
Yeah.
We want everyone, you could go revisit it a year later and it would not necessarily be 100% relevant because of course things are going to change, but it's not like if you missed it this week there's no reason to listen to it anymore because the news is old.
So some of the thematics of it and the overall message is something that'll still have value
Right.
further down the line.
Exactly.
Indefinitely.
So we want this thing so something you'll be able to listen to, refer back to, use as a reference, that kind of thing, and that's kind of what we want to achieve with this particular podcast. So yeah. So we'll see. We're learning along the way, just like
Absolutely.
All of you are learning our style here, and hopefully you like it. We'll see.
How many more questions should we take?
Let's see. Maybe just a couple more, and then we'll call
Okay.
it. Let's see here.
Do you recommend doing animation before going into drawing comics?
Okay, I'll answer that pretty
Yeah.
quickly. That was from Infamous Viper. If that is your choice, I would actually recommend that. I would actually recommend it. And let me tell you why. If you learn animation, especially, like even with 3D animation, but especially with 2D animation, you'll learn a lot of skills that can be applied into comics. That can be applied directly into comics. At the same time, giving you an avenue of work that pays extremely well, that if your comic journey doesn't work out, you have something to fall back on. Okay? But a lot of the fundamentals that you learn in animation can be applied to comics. Even the act of filmmaking, all of that can apply to comics. When it comes to shot selection, the way you compose things, the way you draw things, getting that work ethic to draw. Learning anatomy, all of that you learn in an animation course, all of that can be applied to doing comics. All of it can. So if that's choice, I think that's actually a really good choice.
Absolutely.
If you can afford it.
That's the
another
thing.
thing.
If you can afford it,
That's the whole
like
thing.
there's more venues again today with a lot of the different ways. Like there's some great YouTube channels. Harold Wimhurst, I think that's how you spell it. We might add in the description after. Harold Wimhurst, he's a guy who does 2D animation and has YouTube tutorials up. Have a look at his stuff. It's fantastic. Two of the key things that you'll find from his stuff is that keyframes, especially for movement and motion. Think of that. If you want to go back and use that and refer that back into comics, those are your panels, right? And you're capturing the best possible thing that you could for a particular movement or motion when you understand this stuff from animation. The other thing as well is what do you call it? Focal depths. That's something that isn't prevalent in people's minds when they go into art right away for a lot of people, but focal depths can do a lot for storytelling. And in animation, I think there's a lot more focus on that, and you'll be able to pick that up, learn that, and then translate that over into your art as well.
Right. So again, if you could afford it, and that is a big question. If you could afford it to go to animation school, it's not a negative. Let's just say that.
Right.
It's not a negative. It's not going to hurt. Okay. It's not going to hurt, and especially if you're at, if I assume that you're young. I assume you're young and asking me this question, meaning like you're late teens, early 20s. You got time. You got a lot of time.
Now, if you're young, I'm gonna
rush?
recommend a couple things just to get your feet wet in it and dabble in it without having to spend too much money right away. I'm not sure if you would remember the name of this particular author. It's a classic book. It is the Bible for animators, a guide to animation. It's a really thick book.
Yes.
Have a look at that. Read that. And apply that. If you want to grab a piece of software, I actually tweeted this earlier. Who are they? Clip Studio. Clip Studio is actually a program that also has an animation aspect to it now. You can use that to be able to do some very basic animation work that you'll probably be happy with and see if you like that sort of thing. It goes for $250 US retail, but twice to 3 times a year they have it on sale for $87. Mm-hmm. So that would be a potential inexpensive way to be able to get your feet wet in it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, those 2 things. Guide to Animation, have a read at that, and then if you wanted to be able to try it out, albeit digitally, you can go to something like Clip Studio, wait until they have a sale, a seasonal sale, and you can pick up a program for $87 to be able to do a lot of things with a lot of features and variety.
Mm-hmm. And along those lines, if anyone's wondering what kind of courses to take, if you want to help improve, and all of this is if you have the money. If you have the money, if you don't, then just focus on your art. Absolutely. But at the same time, like what wouldn't hurt is if you took a photography course, that kind of thing, that would help you learn how to frame shots, learn depth of field like you were talking about, all that, learn things like color and you know, framing, all that kind of stuff you can learn in photography. If you could take a filmmaking course, any sort of filmmaking course, and you learn how to put it, because what are comics? They're films on paper.
Absolutely.
If you think about that way.
Storyboards.
Your story. At the end of the day, you're telling a story when it comes to a comic. So that might be a good course. Now, we'll probably have a whole podcast on school, and we're going to reiterate all of these things, but those are main things. Okay, so we've been going for 1 hour and 45 minutes.
You know what?
That may be off a little bit.
Let's just answer this last question.
What's the last
Have you ever made, Insum asks, have you ever made a cover or comic of your family? I wanted to pull that one out because you had just showed me that the last time I was here.
I did do one of my family. It was actually a present for my wife.
Yeah.
For her birthday, I drew our family as the Avengers. I drew myself as Captain America. My wife was Iron Man, Iron Woman, Iron Maiden,
right,
whatever that is. My son was the Hulk, and then my daughter was Thor, and then the other one was Spider-Man. So we put all of that together, and it was for her birthday. So that was fun. As you guys know, I don't like to talk too much about my kids, but that's why I won't show it to you. But let's just say she really loved it. So.
That's just one of the cool things that you can do as an artist, to be able to bring something out there that isn't something that's bought. It's something created by you that can be a visual experience for the people in your life, and that's a cool thing. You know,
just one thing before we leave on that, right? You know, one thing that people like to ask me to do whenever I'm at cons is to draw them as a superhero. They like you know, so I will draw them as a superhero.
That. Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
They ask that. Now, to me, I think, okay, that's a cool gift. So there's this one person, I won't say who it is, and I won't say how he's associated to me. But I thought it was a cool gift because I really respect this person, and I thought it was a cool gift. So what I did was I drew this person as Batman, right? Cool. I drew this person as Batman. It looked cool. Yeah. So I gave it as a gift. He didn't know how to react to it.
What do you mean?
He didn't know how to react to it because he's never received a gift like that before. And he thought, this is cool. But he goes, I can't hang this on my wall because the people who come into his office,
I see what you mean.
They're like, is there a picture of you as Batman?
Yeah.
And let's just say that he's a high professional. Let's just say that. So to him, it was a weird gift, right? It was a weird gift. He didn't understand it. So I guess it's only those in the culture that kind of get that type of gift.
Yes.
So my wife would get that kind of gift because even though she's not, into comics, she gets the association with it.
Right.
And of course, those people at cons, they love that stuff.
But if you're in the industry, it's a little weird.
Yeah,
because it's almost like,
if you're not associated with it at all, they're like, what?
Yeah.
What are you saying about it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm saying you're the world's greatest detective. But yeah. But anyway, this was fun.
This was awesome.
This was a lot of fun.
Awesome, guys. Thank you for hanging out with us.
Yeah, and we are gonna have more. Hopefully we'll get better, and we're gonna figure this out. So hopefully you'll be able to get all of our podcasts on iTunes or your favorite podcast catcher. Anyway, so if this comes out, hopefully soon, don't forget to rate this if you can. It does help a lot if you rate it. And be honest with your rating, that's fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you want a 5-star, great. If you want a 1-star, that's cool too. Whatever, just be honest.
5 even better, but 1 awesome.
And
let us know what's going on.
Exactly.
Some of these questions that you guys have, if you want to even just put them in some comments afterwards when this is talked about, perhaps on your daily vlog and what have you. These are things that could end up being something that would end up having a full podcast. Like, I mean, some of the questions you guys already have out there are things that we've already been discussing. We should probably do a podcast on this.
Right,
podcast
exactly.
On that.
And then you help us you are helping us with
content.
With content, and that's because this is fun. This is therapeutic for us, and for us, you know, like I said, we were lifelong friends, but there were a few years we haven't been talking. Absolutely. And then we just got back together, and it's been great. It's been great. We're best buds again. So this is for us kind of to catch up.
It's going to be exactly.
Well.
There's going to be a moment where James, I didn't know
that. Right. Like I didn't know that Warren Ellis story. You never told me that Warren Ellis story. That's why I was laughing so hard. So there you go.
There's many more stories where that came from.
Many stories. There you go. So
from both of us.
Yeah. So for our friends who are listening on the podcast right now, where can they find you, Jonathan?
They can find me on Instagram at JONENCAR. That's John and Car. Every once in a while, I'll be posting stuff on there. Actually, that's probably where you'll see most of my output. And also www.joninc.com. I'll be updating that and making it a little bit more polished. And those would be the two places right now as of this initial podcast. The main places.
Okay, awesome. And you can follow me on all social media, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, at Box Office Artist, Facebook.com/TheBoxOfficeArtist. Follow me on Twitch, Twitch.tv/BoxOfficeArtist, which I also stream simultaneously with YouTube, YouTube.com/TheBoxOfficeArtist. We invite you to join our different chats or our different message groups. We have one on Twitter. I believe it's called the Virtual Studio. Just tag us and we'll try to get you into that if you'd like to join. We also have a community that is on the Discord app, right?
Yes, we have soft launched it to the Virtual Studio group and the community that have been there from, I would say, probably like April, May onwards. And we'll be releasing it, I'd say, very, very soon to the general public. There will be a video about that, I imagine.
Yes, absolutely.
And we'll talk about the way the Discord works. Basically, it's the difference between the Virtual Studio on Twitter being like a room where everybody's hanging out and everybody's talking about different things versus a house where it's several different rooms and everybody can be hanging out there, but you're going to one room talking about one thing and then another room talking about another thing. So it's been awesome so far. We'll be releasing that probably very shortly.
And then that's one thing about the followers of my YouTube channel and of this podcast is a lot of you are aspiring artists yourselves, and it's just a way for all of us to get together and help each other out. And that's one thing I notice about a lot of the audience is that a lot of them want to help each other out. And ever since I started going live pretty much every single day, a lot of the regular people in the chat, they started to get to know each other and became friends through it. And I never thought like a simple channel on YouTube could start all these different friendships
and build a community.
Yeah, build a community. Everyone helping everyone out, and I think that's a wonderful thing. So that's why we started this Discord, this Discord room. A safe place for everyone to come in, share their artwork, get feedback from each other, and help each other as we all try to reach
and
scalable goals. Yes.
And scalable, because at Virtual Studio, some of the stuff that a lot of our guys there were saying were like, it's really hard to go back in there if you miss it for a few hours. We're scrolling up, so Discord is something that'll be a lot more scalable for us.
Right. So, lot of exciting things on the horizon.
Absolutely, guys.
And it's just beginning. So we thank you for joining us for our first ever podcast.
First ever.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to do. Okay, so we are going to sign off now. So
thank you very much for joining us, guys. My name is John.
Yeah, and I am James. I am the Box Office Artist. We're here to say keep drawing, and we'll see you all next time.
Real soon.
Or talk to you all next time. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye. And that is it, everyone. That is our first inaugural podcast. Thank you to everyone on the chat for helping us out. We would love your feedback, guys. We would really, really love your feedback. So if any of you are on the Discord, please do tell
just
us
put
there.
it on the Discord. Ask BOA. Tell us what you thought of it.
Right.
Tell us if there's anything that you would like to see in future podcasts. Anything that you would like to see us improve. Again, this was our very, very, very first podcast.
Yeah. And this will evolve.
It will, absolutely.
It will. Like the first one, we know the 20th one is going to be way different from the first one once we get a good grasp of all of this. So your feedback is really important to us. So do that, or if you're not on the Discord, if you could tweet to us. Or message us on, or you can message me on my Facebook page or message me on Twitter, whatever you want to do. Any sort of feedback, and again, it doesn't have to be all good. If there are a lot of things that didn't work, let us know so we could try to fix it.
Anything that you guys can say that would even make this better.
Yeah, we're all for that because this, at the end of the day, this podcast is for you guys to improve yourselves. So we're here to help. And do that. All right,
Helios, you definitely can. It might be a bit of a struggle because Twitter lags, at least on my phone. But we'll definitely be able to have a look at it if that's the outlet and forum that you want to do it on.
Right. And of course, suggestions you have for podcasts, all of that stuff, we will get to that as well. All right. But thank you guys. I think we'll end it off now. We've been going for 2 hours. So thank you guys. High five.
High five.
High five. I will high five. There you go. Okay. And we will talk to you guys next time. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Take care.
And I'll let you guys know I'll probably be up early morning to start the continue with that
Devastator
drawing. Gotta get it done. Gotta get that drawing done. Okay. All right. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye. Peace. That's every day, bro. Peace.